It's a beautiful Monday morning, and you're welcome to this morning's edition of AM120. Yes, it's the 27th of April 2026. Thank you very much for joining. I am Oluwafumbi Bello. And of course, we take you through the dailies first, and then we take you through the weather reports and head straight to our interview segment. And doing justice to the dailies, first we have the Nigerian Tribune. And on the front page, I have a story on page 23. It says, more senators under pressure to defect. APC's strength may hit 102. That story is on page 23. And on page 22, Operation Wetty, PDP, APC exchange words. The writer says, APC Wike-backed PDP, Capet Makinde, or your PDP Turaki-led PDP counter, say Oyo governor stands advisory. And lastly, on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, we have a Kwara State government statement on the trial of Senator Saraki and others in respect of the Offa robbery incident. And that's all we have on the front page of Nigerian Tribune this morning. Taking some inside stories on page 3. It says Nigerian Guild of Editors, SARAP sue NBC over gag order on broadcast opinions. COVID-19, lack of testing hides true spread, or your government wants. Lawyers risk sanctions over robes at military court-martial, Falana wants. HPV vaccine can reduce certain cancers by half in boys and men. And that's all on that page. NDLEA intercepts terror drone, Captagon in Kwara as Bisman excretes 45 cocaine wraps. Operatives destroy 394 IED materials in Niger. Troops apprehend 9 suspected oil thieves, destroy illegal refining sites. Security operatives arrest kidnappers, recover 8 million naira ransom in Plateau State. Report successes of military onslaughts too, not tragedies. Buratai task journalists. Gunmen kill 3 mourners, kidnap 2 others in Benue. And on page 5, experts decry borrowing binge as debt to revenue metrics weaken. Federal government, states, local governments share 5.899 trillion naira allocation in Q1 2026. Multiple taxes, excessively high fees by agencies killing aviation business, and that's coming from CPPE, says charges account for over 35% of airline revenue. And that's all on page 5. And on page 6, job losses loom as more inland container terminals shut down. And that's to talk of business and economy. Nigeria lost over $76 billion running failed government businesses, says Oye. T1, Nigeria aligns with global standards, eyes liquidity boost. We are building resilient economy for Nigeria, and that's coming from the CBN Deputy Governor. Moving on to business and money markets, achieving single-digit inflation targets despite Middle East crises, headwinds, I beg your pardon. And that's all on that page. That's on page 12. Investors shun mid-tenor instruments as CBN sells 1.9 trillion naira automobiles. CBN harps on investment in data infrastructure to boost raw materials development. Bags award for support to financial journalism. And that's all on money matters, talking of money and money markets. And on tax and taxation, Nigeria's tax reforms signal positive outcomes for businesses, individuals, and that's according to an expert. New Finance Minister Oyedele pledges revenue optimization, fair taxation. Federal government never introduced fresh tax on vehicles, and that's coming from NRS, that's the Nigeria Revenue Service. Moving on to the back page on page 28, Conwa gives update on 2009 agreement renegotiation with federal government. Federal government promotes digital jobs as Oyo lawmaker expands youth tech training. Lagos maintains COVID-19 vigilance, strengthens infection control. And that story is on page 29. Senator donates 30 motorcycles to security agencies in Jigawa State. 6.7 million African children remain unvaccinated despite gains. And that's coming from the World Health Organization. Adeleke approves implementation of ASU federal government agreement at Uniosun. Area payment set for 2026. Offer Security Committee seeks direct allocation of security votes to local governments. And lastly, we have a sports story on the back page of the Nigerian Tribune. It says Chelsea beats Leeds to set up FA Cup final with City. And that's all we have on the newspaper review this morning. We'll be right back after the weather report. Please stay with us.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Supermalt has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
It's up to architect Bisola and builder Brian to rebuild the city.
We'll need some help. Let's get up and go!
You'll need more Cowbell Choco to complete your mission.
To get up and go, give them Cowbell Choco. When malaria knocks you down, you can be sure parasites are having a party in your system.
Welcome to our new kingdom, God.
Against malaria. Attacking the parasite army directly. Press relief and get you back on your feet effectively. Comb out on Malaria Gone.
Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Yes, it's still AM 120. And this morning, we will be talking about the economy and, of course, everything surrounding the economy, starting with the cabinet reshuffle we saw happen last week. That's to talk about the task ahead of the new finance minister. Last week, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu approved a minor cabinet shuffle that removed 2 ministers and promoted a junior official to the key post of finance minister. His office said, and that's coming from the office of the presidency, Taiwo Oyedele, previously Minister of State for Finance, replaced Wale Edun as Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. And that's what we will be talking about today. What's the task ahead of Taiwo Oyedele? To do justice to this conversation this morning, we have an economist, Dr. Adekunle Onile, in the studio with us. Doctor, it's good to have you. Looking at the task ahead of, or looking at the promotion given to Taiwo Oyedele, let's start with the task. What are the tasks ahead of him before we look at the expectations?
While congratulating the new minister, I know that he is going to be under scrutiny because of the circumstance that surrounded the ousting of the former minister, Mr. Edun. Now, I think the new minister seems to be caught, well, assumingly, for the job. This is because he's no longer a stranger to the seat of power. and is already embedded in the financial structure of the nation, having played a very prominent role in the introduction of the tax laws and its formulation and even its implementation to some extent. Now, what are the tasks ahead of him? I think the first thing is that generally the economy is unhealthy, and he needs to focus on that. And to do that, that means he has to address the few indicators that are suggesting the health of the economy. Primarily, one, the inflation rate. You need to address the galloping inflation in the country that is making life unbearable for the citizens, because every day prices of goods and services are increasing, and this is choking the populace. So that is one major task.
Okay.
The second one is that he has to focus on the debt management strategy for the country. Presently, we are using a large chunk of our revenue to service debt. And also, we are still taking more debts, coupled with that. And he has to address this. 3, he has to address this fiscal policy aspect. Presently, the government is operating a kind of financial deficit regime in his budgeting. The income is grossly far from the revenues. In fact, almost 30 trillion gap deficit in 2025, despite the so-called increase in revenue, which the NRS, that's the Nigeria Revenue Service, announced to the world then. That is 3. 4, there is this problem of paying domestic contractors. And this is one of the problems that Wale Edun faced before he left the office. Many people will recall that it took many local contractors a serious push. They even have to go to the extent of camping at the Ministry of Finance head office for days. They put makeshift shelters just to demand for their money. This is a serious development. Now, lastly, which I think he should be comfortable with that, how to administer the new tax laws so that the expected benefit from it will be what the nation will realize, not the pains.
Okay, let's look at, yes, he is the new finance minister and he's not new to this regime.
Yes.
You would agree with me?
Yes.
And so he has been part of this regime before, since the advent, let me put it that way. Now let's look at what did Wale Edun not do well? Are we optimistic that the new finance minister Oyedele will do better?
That's a big question, and it's subjective. Because when we say the former minister didn't do well, we have to look at the environment.
No, I didn't say he didn't do well.
Okay.
What were those things? You can't be 100%.
Yeah.
So what were those things that maybe if he had tried harder as an expert, he could have done better? So what were those things that he didn't do as expected?
All right, I think I understand your question now. I think the greatest challenge that Wale Edun had, which he was not able to achieve before he left office, is this issue of managing the nation's inflation. Because despite the fact that income increases over time, the inflationary rate still remains steady. Why it is not too high, but it was still increasing at a steady rate. That is a kind of a failure on part of the minister. Although, like I said, it is subjective because it's not the only person responsible for that. There are a lot of myriads of reasons why that was that. But then, the point still remains is part of the management that is expected to perform and give the nation results. So then another one is the monetary aspect. That is the exchange rate. Even though the exchange rate dropped a little, it's still not as much as many people expected, considering the fact that the stabilization of the economy is counted so much as being in progress. But unfortunately, why that is being flaunted, that yes, the economy is now stable, the exchange rate only achieve very small difference. So on that one too, we might say he didn't do much. He could have achieved much. So I think among many other reasons, so that I don't waste time on that.
Okay, looking at the appointment of Taiwo Yedele now, and the situation of the country, do you think it should continue in the direction of the current reforms Wale Edun has already laid down, or it should move in another direction that would, of course, take the economy to a better state?
Well, he has to have his own mind and build on what the last minister did.
But don't forget, you just told us the lapses of the last minister.
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
When I said he has to build on, because you see, government is a continuum. And one of the greatest or the easiest way to fail is to have a policy somersault. That is when your predecessors had laid a good foundation and we just felt, let me just dismantle that. No, that's not appropriate. More so when he's part of the same system. It was his own blueprint that the minister was implementing in tax administration. Now, Wale Edun needs to, the new minister, Taiwo, needs to focus more on the, which is where many people blame Edun. There's this complaint that, especially from the legislature, that they pass so many capital budgets, but less than 30% of that was implemented throughout 2025.
What's the meaning for that?
Where what the legislator, I may not blame him too much, because like I always said, there is no smoke without fire. If something looks unsteady, maybe something is below it that is rocking it. Now, what we heard outside is that he was not releasing the fund for the capital expenditure, despite the fact that the nation had an increase in revenue. But his own defense was that the policy of government was to focus on debt servicing so that we can get out of that doldrum. So he is more interested in channeling money to ensure that we are debt-free, whereas that is affecting capital expenditure.
No, I could see a mix-up around there.
All right.
He was focusing on servicing that.
Yes.
And there were capital projects.
Yes.
Waiting unattended to.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we are still collecting loans
Yes.
for capital projects. So is something not wrong there? You are servicing debt, you are collecting more loans, so it's like a circle. What do you think is wrong as a finance expert?
Now, let me put it this way. To a layman, it looks like it is wrong. But when you go deep, that is part of the engineering. It is not.
Really?
Yeah. I've always told people that if you look at most rich people nowadays, even not even nowadays, over time, even in history, a lot of people that you see who are millionaires and billionaires actually are debtors. Not necessarily their own resources. They get cheap fund to make more money and reinvest the money. I'm coming, I know it sounds like a contradiction. You understand? For example, the greatest debtor in the world is United States of America. Yet, they spend trillions on wars and unnecessary that consume so much money.
It really looks absurd. Really.
It looks absurd, but they know what they are doing.
I want to borrow money to do things that
Yes.
I can easily take out money to do and then go to sleep.
Now, I understand, but this is how it is. You see, you borrow money because it is cheaper to borrow than to spend.
It's not cheap.
No, I'll tell you why it is cheap. Let me explain why it is cheap. Let me explain why. That's why I said it takes some engineering, something to understand that. I mean, some economic engineering. Now, you might have 5,000 naira in your account. You want to buy something of, let's say the same 5,000 naira. It might not be economically wise to go and withdraw that 5,000 to buy the 5,000 thing you want to buy. I'm coming. People don't understand it. That's how it works. Now, but it is economically wise and sound. If somebody is ready to borrow you 5,000 naira and collect an interest of maybe 100 naira or 200 naira,
So how do you
it is
repay?
the cost.
How do
I'm
you
coming.
repay?
I'm coming. It is the cost of the interest that really matters. Now, your own 5,000 naira that you have in the bank, now, during the period of that borrowing that you are only paying 100 naira interest, can actually be used or channeled to something that will give you maybe 2,000 naira benefit. So that is how it works. You can be a rich man and still be borrowing money.
But looking at this analysis now, relating it with the Nigerian economy, do you think we are investing in what, ventures that are profitable for the nation?
That is the issue now. That is the issue. That is why when people are shouting our debt profile is still increasing, why we are saying we've removed subsidy, why are we still borrowing? You understand? I understand why people will talk like that as a lay person. You understand? You see, I have an uncle who used to be a very, very rich man. There was one day I was asking him, I said, Uncle, see your fleet of cars, see your houses and everything. I just learned that your company approached First Bank for a loan. He said, yes. I said, why? Why don't you sell all these cars and these extra houses and use that money to buy whatever your company needs? He just laughed and looked at me. He said, that doesn't make economic sense. That the cost of fund is what it's all about. For those who understand the nitty-gritty, the cost of fund, a penny today is worth double of a penny tomorrow.
Okay.
You understand the logic now?
Yeah, but you have still not answered the question.
All right, which is, please
Looking
direct
at
me.
the Nigerian economy,
Yeah.
do you think we are diverting our funds to ventures that would give us return to boost the economy?
Okay.
I mean, looking at the inflation
Okay,
issue.
hypothetically, yes. How? The current imbroglio now, issue of the uproar now, is about the borrowing of how many trillions now by the federal government to do Sokoto Badagry Road. Now, to some people, why? But to somebody who understand the logic. The reason is simple. These are productive ventures. It will only be wrong if federal government is borrowing money to fund the election or to buy more cars. I'm still coming to that on another side, though. That does not mean federal government is not buying more cars or not spending more money. In fact, people are saying that instead of the government borrowing money, why don't they cut overheads? You understand? That's another way of looking at it. Yeah, there's some point in that. But again, remember that government have both economic and social responsibilities together. It's not only about managing the economy alone. You also have to manage the social responsibilities, which is that there are some things you just have to do just because they are necessary to keep the society running. Now, the issue, one of them is this. The political structure of Nigeria is that we must have Senate and House of Rep. They must be paid. They must have staff. That is the structure. It is very difficult in a democracy for a president to just unilaterally say, I want to cut all this. It is not possible. Even if you want to do it.
But are we spending on priorities?
That's what I've just said. I said priorities is also depending on the way, what you call priority. It's like we are in this studio now. Whether you have 4 lights or 6 lights here now, all the lights must be on, irrespective of the bill. But that does not mean that we cannot dim one to save the bill. But those who are watching at home might say, why is their studio a little bit dark? You understand? So it all depends on what you are expecting and how you want to manage it. Okay. So it's individual preferences.
Okay. Having said that, one would have thought that the Kaduna-Badagry...
Sokoto?
Sokoto-Badagry highway in projection. We have many roads that have not been fixed. And we want to fix a new one. Don't you think that, why don't we repair and build new ones? Go to rural areas where food items are coming from. They barely have good roads. We have not fixed those ones.
Where?
Well, look at how long it's taking us to fix DFA. The whole road DFA road.
All right.
We are here to fix this one.
We're
now coming up with an elephant project. How many years is it going to take us to do that road? Sokoto Badagry.
A very good observation, but with a but.
Okay.
The but is that road is not really an elephant project.
Okay.
That road might, even in some perspective, be better than even the existing one. I will tell you the reason why. Most of the other roads we are referring to, all the inner roads and the short, they might all be roads that are just constructed in those days for political reasons. It's just like you have the rail something now. There is a railroad already from Lagos to Ibadan. Maintaining or repairing that road has become no longer economical. That is why the new standard gauge was built. To cut, I'm just giving you an example, to make it more efficient. That is, it's not a straight road. You understand? Instead of all the corner, all the turns and all. So some of these roads that people think, just like the Lagos Calabar to Coastal Road, it is very, very short. It's going to be more economical for the commuters. These are long-term projections. You understand? If government decide to be fixing Lagos to Ore to Benin to, how many years would that take and how much money would that take? When you can do a straight cut, a shortcut in a nutshell, instead of the roundabout to get to the place. So people should look at it from that direction. And that is the way the world is changing. Things that have been done before, when you see a more economic and a more efficient approach or method that you use it. Then you understand. The Sokoto Badagry Road, Express, will cut across all the states. Interestingly for me, I'm used to that road because I school in the north, I school in Sokoto. I remember when I have to leave from Ibadan to Sokoto. Yes, and even the stressful journey.
How many days do you go?
Well, it's a day journey. Yeah, it's a day. No, by road. It's a day journey from Songo by Park.
About 23, 22, 23 hours thereabouts.
Not up to. When we leave in the morning around 7 from Songo Park, by 8 p.m. in the night, we are already in Sokoto. Yeah, we are already in Sokoto. That's how it is.
If the road was good.
The road was good. That was in the 80s. So the road was good, and not now that all these Jeba bridges and roads and Mokwa roads are terrible. When the road was good. Sure, you understand. So, and government has been making efforts to rehabilitate and repair some of these roads. But they discovered that it keep on.
Sometimes it happens like a miracle.
All right.
We pass through a road in the night. The road is good. We wake up in the morning. Something has happened. The road is bad.
What?
That some people are always walking.
No, what caused that? What caused that is traffic.
No, I'm saying yesterday night you passed through a particular road. There was no pothole, and then just wake up in the morning and you see a pothole. Maybe another time, some people go there to do palliative and fix it. After a while, you see that the hole is big again. Especially on this Iwo Road, Ife Road. And you're wondering what's happening.
Well, maybe because that looks miraculous to me. If in the evening the road is bad, and then in the morning the road is good.
No, good in the night, bad in the morning.
So how possible? That's what I'm
like some people work all night.
Well, that's something that all of us will have to find an answer to.
All right, doctor. Let's look at inflation now and cost of living now with the role or task ahead of the new minister. With inflation affecting, virtually every phase of Nigeria economy now, and of course even Nigerians generally, what fiscal measures can realistically ease the burden on Nigerians?
You see, inflation is always primarily demand driven. That's the theory, the economic theory. And to address and reduce inflation, the strategy first and foremost is to lower what I would call prices. And how do you lower prices? The easiest method is to increase supply. Because once you have abundant supply, the sellers have no option than to reduce their prices. But here we are presently, where demand is stripping the supply. Right. So we have to stimulate the economy by increasing production and making it more vibrant. And by the time that is done, the prices of goods and services will certainly drop.
When you talk about increasing production, we have seen that a lot of Nigerians, in fact, a lot of companies are even folding up in Nigeria.
Yes.
We have seen a lot of people struggling because of the exchange rates, because of the inflation. It's been difficult to even start a business, not to talk of, production, the purchase of these, the machines to start up raw materials, the cost of raw materials. Now, how do we ease the burden? Looking at it realistically now, how do we ease the burden on such people who also wants to invest into the economy of Nigeria to ease the burden we are currently facing?
Now, to answer that question, let's look at what has happened in other climes. How did China got out of the doldrums? China used to be a poverty-stricken country too in those days. Now, they took the bull by the horn. What they did, like I've said, production is what makes you rich. In Nigeria, we have this penchant, an appetite for foreign goods and services, consumptions. Because the economic struggle must be met with certain certain social sacrifices. You can't have citizens who believe in buying foreign big cars and jeeps, expecting that things will be better. Our society is very profligate. When it comes to socializations, we spend money as if that money could have been used by that individual to create employment.
Okay, as we're wrapping up, Dr. Nina, let's look at it. How do you think this new minister can rechannel the economy, finance, to get us better in the coming days?
Yeah, like I've said, the most important approach for him now is to increase revenue. And luckily, like I said, he has no excuse.
Increase revenue?
Yeah.
That means we're going to be taxed more.
Not necessarily taxation. Taxation is just a part of revenue collection. There are other avenues for getting revenues, from oil proceeds, from services, and from even including diaspora remittances. All these are revenues that
with the cuts that goes to from source that goes to some of the agencies of government. We discussed it last week.
That is also another area he has to fix. You understand? You know, presently there was this story about trillions that. So these are some of the areas that have to be fixed, and I'm sure the man is clever enough. Looking at him and his presentations, I've always been enthralled by his smoothness, which I hope will now translate to actions. So
thank you very much, Dr. Adekunle Onile, an economist who's been talking to us or sharing what he feels, talking about the task ahead of the new minister and, of course, the expectations from the new minister. Thank you so much, Doctor.
It has always been a pleasure coming here.
All right, we'll be right back after this short break with the second guest. Please stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. Yes, we are back with our second guest and still talking about the task ahead of the new finance minister, Taiwo Oyedele. We have Comrade Sonjo Akomu, a finance analyst. Comrade, it's good to have you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It's my pleasure to be
Good
here.
morning, sir. Looking at the reshuffle in the cabinet, and of course, talking of Taiwo Oyedele, we saw what he did regarding the tax, the new tax law that was implemented, or the implementation commenced this year, January this year. What would you say about your expectations of him in the coming days, especially looking at the economy and how the inflation rate has been, and everything that happened during the previous finance minister, Wale Edun? What transformation or what immediate transformation should we be expecting from him?
Well, thank you very much. I think Taiwo Oyedele is coming at a very, very difficult time. And looking at what has been happening all over the place, especially the events that led to the removal or to the resignation, as they describe it, of the former minister. The major problem was the failure to release funds for capital projects. And then when you look at the role of a finance minister, is the captain in the classroom of fiscal managers of the nation.
When you say the failure to release funds, did we really have those funds?
That is not the issue now. According to the appropriation bill 2025, money have been appropriated, right? And then there is allegation of zero release. So it's not the question of whether the money is there or not. Once we use that word release, it means that the money is somewhere and somebody is not. Excuse me, please. I don't want to. Let me land on the area of fiscal policy, management of government revenue, and then government spending. Those two critical areas. In the past, before Emefiele, Central Bank of Nigeria and Ministry of Finance, they work hand in hand to manage the both monetary and fiscal policy of the government. But maybe because of influence and whatever, Emefiele removed himself from the Ministry of Finance, and he was on this. He worked directly to the president. So my own expectation now is that how that gap between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy of the government is breached. That's number one thing. The two of them must be able to work together in making sure that if you are talking about revenue, are the revenue coming in as at when due? And when they come in, how are you managing the distribution? That is the major problem. I think with the allegation of people saying that most of the ministry did not get their allocation, then we can now begin to raise the question of, is the money available or not? But first and foremost is that once appropriations are made, it is the Minister of Finance that will juggle between which one is the priority, which one should come first. Can we hold on this? Can we release funds for this? But in the absence of not having any release at all, then there is a question mark.
Okay, let's look at it. You have given us this analysis. Fantastic. But trust me, you can't be a finance minister without getting direct approval from the president. There might be papers to say release, but when you want to release and the president says, look, prioritize these ones, what would you do?
That's that's a peculiar situation.
So it's not within his purview to say yes or no.
Well, if we go by that route, we are diminishing the seats of a finance minister. The president has about 50 ministers. So every minister must go to his table every day to go and take permission to do their job. I think that is terribly wrong. It's fundamental. If that is the situation, no, I am not in cabinet. But ordinarily, as a minister, is supposed to be the finance advisor to the government. That this is what we, and that is why we have the National Assembly. We have the Committee on Appropriation. All of those people. And let me tell you, in the Ministry of Finance, there are so many professionals, technocrats. So the minister is just force among equals. A lot of knowledgeable people there, a lot of professionals there, but the buck still stop on his table. It's just the arrowhead. So once the appropriation is made and the money is available, it is the responsibility of that finance minister. I don't think it needs to wait unless there is an urgent intervention that can prevail over established needs.
In a nutshell, you're trying to say that it was Wale Edu's choice to fail in that regard.
Well, I want to say that maybe it was his choice. And if he has his own reason for not releasing all those funds, nobody has come out to tell us that the money, revenue are not there. Every now and then we hear from the Nigerian Revenue Services that they have released it. We hear from the Federation account that. So if states are getting their own allocation, I'm very sure that the federal too they are getting their own. But the distribution, the appropriation lies in the Federal Ministry of Finance. And if the minister decided to withhold, he must have his own reasons too. But
are we going to link
that
this?
he holds that responsibility.
Are we going to link this to the reports from World Bank a few weeks ago, and that says there's a leakage in the purse of Nigeria's purse, talking of corruption?
Well, Nigeria has always been associated with corruption, especially in government.
But I mean, we saw this shake-off immediately after.
The shake-off did not come immediately after. It came up immediately after that. What's the name of this honorable that raised the question of why ministries, departments, and agencies are not receiving their allocation for capital projects? I think that was the beginning. And the case of what the World Bank said, well, this is the opaque nature of Nigerian finance, whereby a lot of deductions are made even before the federal allocation received their own. So it is in that light that report was shedding a lot of light. But in terms of capital flow, especially transfers, fund released for capital projects, I think that is the responsibility of the federal Minister of Finance, because he's the champion, he's the captain in the fiscal policy framework of the federal government. So we will not know, because the man has not come out, he has not been able to come out and defend himself, why he failed to release those funds.
Okay, let's look at other things that areas the new finance minister need to work on.
All right.
He's now on that seat. He has seen what worked and what did not work. And don't forget, he was, of course, the head of the committee, also in charge of the nation's economy. Now, what should we expect of Taiwo Oyedele in the coming days?
Well,
going by his pedigree and his antecedent.
First and foremost, what Nigerians should be looking for, that Nigerians should be expecting, is that the economic policies of government must translate to good living standard of Nigeria.
Okay, before we come to the living standard, let's quickly pay some bills and then we'll come back shortly. Please stay with us, don't go away.
Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids.
All right, welcome back. It's still AM120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State. Of course, Comrade Ekomo, you were telling us before we went on that break what, the translation, the standard of living of the people. Please, kindly comment at all.
Just as I was saying, the immediate past Minister of Finance, he had a lot of tangible achievements in terms of growth in GDP, growth in the economy, stability of the currency. But the Nigerian populace, they have not seen the effects in their homes. Even though when we have fiscal policy, we have reforms, it takes some time before those reforms will actually begin to yield results. So the call by the populace is that things are very hard. Things are very tough. So the number one task for the Minister of Finance is to make sure that life becomes better. Prices of goods and services comes down. But I must, at this juncture, point out that the macroeconomic policy is invested in the federal government through Federal Ministry of Finance and the CBN. But the microeconomic activities, which will actually translate into better living for ordinary Nigeria, is vested in the state and the local government. We must not forget that fact. That is the area people are actually missing it.
So you mean we are chasing shadows?
Of course. Because when you look at the micro policy of the government, which has translated into increased revenue, increased allocations to states, it is how the state now use that money that will influence, that will affect prices of goods and commodity in their localities. So we should not be expecting what a teacher will give us from a mechanic or a doctor.
We should not just hold the federal government accountable now, but each at state level.
Yes, there should be a synergy. As at when due, state and local government receive their revenues, and they are receiving it, and many of them have come out to tell us that what they were receiving in the past has now tripled. So how is it not affecting the people? Because the microeconomic, the things that affect individuals, households, small scale businesses, they are what the government at the state and local government level are doing with their allocations. We shouldn't forget about that. So now, in terms of monetary policy, the CBN must not be contracting while the Ministry of Finance is expanding. There should be a balance. The two of them must have a way where they will sit down. Okay, I'm holding on to contractors' fund because there are too much money in circulation. Let us hold on. Okay, the economy is dragging. Let us release fund to contractors, release all the transfer to agencies so that they can play around with money. Those are the interplay. But when it comes to re-spending, most of it are in the local government and the state, which are very, very, very close to the people. But we are mudding everything up because of politics, because of ignorance. Everybody just want to blame someone. But to those people who understand how economics work, they will know that every one of them, they have their roles and they can work together for the benefit of the people. So I am looking forward to see this new man, who is a taxman, is very good in revenue generation. But the other side of it, which is the government spending, must be able to balance it so that as at when due, when money is supposed to be released to all these agencies, then they should be able to do it. And if there is any itch that there was a time in Nigeria when banks were making paper profits. until somebody came and said, well, you cannot continue to be having all these bogus profits and it's not reflecting in dividend you are giving to people. And a lot of measures were made. So if we are saying that we are having revenue and the money is not with CBN, then another question should be raised. And that is at the realm of National Assembly and all other stakeholders in the financial management of Nigerian economy.
Okay, now you have talked about government spending, and maybe there was something we didn't also look at. The immediate past finance minister, maybe on his own, just like he said, he should be responsible for the activities in the ministry, thought that government spending was overbloated. It was going to take too much. And so he felt, look, let's service our debts so that we can have relief and then we can be able to get more at some point. That is one school of thought. Now, don't you also think that we should check our expenditure?
Well, expenditure in terms of what and what. Expenditure, you can spend as much as you can if what you are spending on has the capacity to generate more revenue. It's like a business person, a businessman. You are selling 1,000 every day, and you have the potential of selling 3,000. You can borrow money to buy extra stock that will take care of that 2,000. So once you sell that one, it increases your revenue. So, but if it is for consumption, that is where the danger is. There is nothing, I've said it several times, there's nothing wrong from the business point of view, from borrowing. But once you are borrowing, don't borrow to go and do marriage. Don't go and borrow to do birthday. Don't go and borrow to buy all these expensive cars that you have alternative locally. But if you are investing in tomorrow, a lot of economies around us, they invested in what is it called? Infrastructures. It is those infrastructures that are now giving them returns. So when somebody is just like you said about the former minister, when he concentrated on debt payment, the moment you are indebted to a person and you have that ability to pay as at when due, you are increasing your credit rate so that you can borrow more. But if you have money, you borrow money and you are spending it anyhow, nothing is coming back, and you are not paying back, very soon you will become bankrupt.
So looking at Nigeria now, do you think we are spending money on, like you mentioned, infrastructure and other amenities we could spend money on to give us more revenue generation? Is that the case for us in Nigeria, or we are spending money into ventures that would not give us profits?
Well, personally, I think I will leave that one to the spokesperson of governments to come and tell us. And
when questions like these are being asked, I mean, it's just what we all can see.
Of course, we can see.
It's just how we can see how money is moving around the economy, and of course the lamentation of the people. Is that the case for us in Nigeria? Are we getting enough? Are we spending on what is giving us enough revenue as a country, as a nation?
When you look around us now, I've always been saying this. Ibadan, for example, Ibadan has no functional railway line. This is something that we should have achieved 40, 50 years ago. You can imagine the kind of revenue that this large city can get from movement of people across. Lagos State is doing it. They are investing in that area. What are the things that are seen around us, apart from creating environment for foreign investors to come and what are they investing? Majority of these investors that are coming to Nigeria, most of them are investing on short-term investment.
Why is that so?
It's because of the volatility of the economy, that's instability here and there. They just want a situation where they can easily pack their money and go back. Many of them are not actually investing in long term. And government too. We have not, apart from Lagos-Ibadan Railway, which was financed by the last administration. There, anyway, we have something to point out, maybe just like the last speaker said here, the coastal road and then the Lagos-Sokoto road. But I think Nigeria is too big. It's even bigger than those two roads. There is still a lot of things that still, and first and foremost, federal government, state government, and local government, they should come together and find solution to the question of power. Once that one is solved, Nigerians are very creative, Nigerians are hardworking, but they don't have the tools to work.
Talking of power, I mean, we also have to relate it with a stable economy.
Yeah.
Because there's no way we would not have enough, power generation without talking of the effect on the economy and, of course, how money, is circulating in the country. So now, how can we have a stable economy apart from the power you mentioned?
Well, we can have a stable economy when the economic operators, just like I've explained the other time, the CBN, the Federal Ministry of Finance, and their other stakeholders, when they come together and put the Nigerian people at the central focus of their activities. Majority, I've always said is that we have a lot of dubious professionals. They know that this thing is wrong, but it's going to benefit them, and that is where they concentrate. But when they see things that will benefit Nigerians, and they are unanimous, in agreement that this is the direction we will go, we are going to have, economics does not react to sentiment, emotion. It reacts to behavior. We say, this is the way we want to go. Everybody must go there. Why on earth do we have some manufacturing companies that are, I think maybe they were just coupling vehicles, motorcycles, and none of them is cited in this country. But it benefits those who are importing those parts. But it doesn't create jobs for Nigerians. A lot of people are riding big. In the past, we used to have Volkswagen in this country. They have the assembly plants here. Peugeot, they had their assembly in Kaduna. All over Nigeria, we have one assembly plant or the other, which were creating jobs for Nigeria. But today, we import overused vehicles, something that's supposed to be in the scrapyard. Those are the things we are celebrating in Nigeria. So if we are going to have a stable economy, these are the kind of behaviors that people will need to change. Number one, the people in government must show by example that we want to consume what is produced. That is what a prime minister in India said. If you cannot wear Indian clothes, please go naked. If you cannot eat Indian food, please stay hungry. We should have that discipline to show leadership and then follow it through. Many people will be talking about Singapore move from third world, they move to second world, they have the best economy, their GDP is their GDP. But nobody was talking about the sacrifice of 30 very grueling government policy. Nobody is talking about that. It wasn't bread and cake when Lee Kuan Yew was dealing with some dry bones in their country. But we have many people that are very difficult to bend, even at our own local level. Everybody want to live, they want to socialize, want to be seen wearing the latest Italian, the latest Spanish things.
But if we, settle for goods, products that are mainly produced in Nigeria, would that not cost more? Looking at the exchange rates.
And that is where production and our own local technology, domestic technology comes in. If you are looking for a country that is so much endowed, that enjoys so much kindness of nature, Nigeria is number one. but the technical know-how is absent because it's not encouraged.
Okay.
It's not encouraged. I remember immediately after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese leaders, they gathered their best brain and started training them. Sent some of them to Europe, sent to all those industrialized nations. And when they came back, we all saw the transformation of Japan. When China started their own revolution, they sent their best brain. But in Nigeria, our best brain in government, are they the one in charge? We continue to recycle our 11th team. The charlatans, average-minded people who are only bent on just showing off and consume and grandstand. So that is the main. We need someone who will change that situation, whereby only the best will be pushed forward, and then they will use their brain, a problem-solving brain, to put a lot of things on ground that will change Nigeria and Nigerian economy. Okay. We have everything that we need. It's there abundantly.
Okay, let's now look at the task ahead of the new finance minister.
Yeah.
To your mind, what are those things before him, the responsibilities?
Well, number one responsibility, thank God, he was the chairman of Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform. That's the reform that we've not had in 30 years. And he has given us that paper. The implementation and execution is the most important thing now. And for him to now be at the helm of your fear now, there won't be any excuse, because you may have very good policy, you may have very good templates, but when you don't have the people who have the knowledge to actually execute. But now we have somebody who was at the beginning, at the center, and at the end of these new reforms. Nigerians are waiting. He has promised us that low-income earners will not be worse off. He has promised us that they have expanded the tax net. We want to see it. And once that one is done, it's going to impact on the revenue generation of the nation. I am optimistic, and I'm excited that the man, the Alpha and Omega, the man who designed, as it were, with some other people, because he didn't work alone. He worked with like minds to give us that reform. So it is the implementation and execution of that reform that it should champion to the benefit. I want to put that right there. To the benefit of an average Nigerian. The promises made that the low-income earners will not be worse off, we want to see it happening under his watch.
Are those the only things that you feel that...
Let's
also look at the Naira.
That is the foundation.
Okay.
And once the foundation is okay, once the foundation, it is, when that one is done properly, the revenue will come in. Then we can now begin to talk about how it's going to be distributed, how it's going to apply it, and then make sure that leakages in the economy
Leakages?
There's so many leakages. How the leakages will be plugged. So, but the foundation is that just what one of my directors said in those days when we were agitating for more salary. He said, you workers, go and bake a bigger cake. When you bake a bigger cake, you can share a bigger cake.
Thank you very much, Comrade. As we wrap up on this segment this morning, 2027 election is around the corner, and we see what happened during election. Money doesn't even go round at all. It affects the economy. How can we make sure fiscal policy doesn't turn into campaign spending?
Thank you very much. I was just going to come to that. That is a booby trap for the minister now. How he's going to manage within this political and election period where politicians will go haywire, bring the money anywhere. How he will be disciplined. How he is going to hold on to the fiscal discipline that is entailed in the reforms. That is the number one major obstacle on his way. Because in an election year like this, especially those in power, they are uncontrollable. Especially when labor union always wait for politicians towards election, you will see a lot of union labor activities demanding, and in order not to lose out, they will just be calling on finance minister, throw money to but this is a challenge. How he is able to navigate it with this fine is ministerial appointment.
Thank you very much, Comrade Sonjo Akomo, a finance analyst who's been analyzing the tasks ahead of the new finance minister, Taiwo Oyedele. Thank you so much, Comrade. It's a pleasure to have you speak on
Thank you for having
this
me.
morning.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for Sport Updates. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.